Good morning. It's April 7th, 7:35 a.m. April 7th, 2020. This is as quick as I can make it video on how nurses can reduce their viral load. Doctors as well. This is developed as a result of strategizing around the conclusions I've been able to make applying first principles and retroductive thinking to the situation with COVID and its likely origin as a bioweapon. It is not a natural virus. This is now pretty much established in my mind just based on its genome or its RNA packing and the size of the bugger. Okay, so I don't think it is natural. I do believe it to be a bioweapon. Doctors will not hear this. They will probably die as a result of staying in normie land, okay, where they're thinking it's a disease and they're reacting as though this is a normal occurrence in the nature of humanity. This is not. Such a thing has never happened to us before. There's all kinds of evidence right in front of their eyes that this is not a natural disease, just based on how rapidly it has destroyed the global economy and devastated the largest manufacturing economy on the planet, China. So let's just get to it. The two biolabs in Wuhan were studying horseshoe bats, as are the other biolabs in China. The point of studying the horseshoe bats was to determine how these bats could possibly survive with rabies, the COVID-19 precursor, and any number of other viri and lethal bacteria in their system constantly, especially since bats were thought to not make vitamin C. The Chinese discovered they do make vitamin C. We don't recognize it because it's a point of use system. The vitamin C is destroyed in its creation, in its act of creation almost, as it keeps the virus down and kills bacteria, etc. And this is how the bat maintains a homeostasis that allows it to exist with these huge loads of otherwise lethal organisms. This point of use vitamin C system is extremely powerful. Based on body mass size, the bats are continually producing vitamin C at a huge level to maintain their homeostasis with their evil symbiote, probably, viri and bacteria. So they do produce it. This was assayed in bat shit, that there's a fresh vitamin C in fresh bat shit, which led to a bunch of other conclusions that the Chinese made and a bunch of investigations they made. Lots of this literature is just out there. They've been putting this literature out for years, leaving out stuff though, and so it was the absence of certain things in all of this literature that led me to these conclusions, which I suspect are accurate. Now, here's what I'm going to say to nurses. Doctors probably won't buy this. They won't believe it. But you can protect yourself and you can reduce your viral load on a continual basis just the way the bats do. And I'll explain what the bats do and why this thing is so deadly to us, okay? You can think of it as a disease that originated in bats, or you can think of it as a precursor that originated in bats that was engineered to be more lethal. Either way, it doesn't matter. The basic strategy is the same. The basic weakness of this is the same. And here's the situation and why it is so bad for us and not so bad for the bats. It has to do with the fact that we don't hang from our feet, okay? And so here's the deal. Bats' lungs are above their trachea, always, mostly. They don't walk around on their feet. Everything is always flowing downward. This virus, or the precursor to the bioweapon, as I believe it to be, is trained to this environment here. And so consequently, in bats, this virus is found back in here and right there. This is the tracheal mechanism within the bat itself. The lungs are up here. The bat produces vast quantities of vitamin C throughout its entire alimentary canal, but it does a huge amount that ends up in the saliva that continually drips down to deal with the increasing viral load. This means two things for us. That's a weakness. That's the strategy the bat uses to control it. We can also adopt that strategy. I'll get into that in a half second. The other thing is that the virus is trained to continually sample for vitamin C in its immediate environment. And when the vitamin C level is at a certain point, it goes and retreats into Prevotella bacillus, which also hangs out in the bat and circulates in its throughout its entirety. And so the bacillus or the virus is trained to react to a certain level of vitamin C in order, and it basically evolutionary, it goes and hides in order to not be killed by the vitamin C that's out there. Any virus that's outside of the prevotella is dampened down in the viral load, and so mostly the bats don't have a viral load. I can get into the evidence, and if any of the doctors ever wanted to contact me and discuss this, I can point them at certain articles that essentially say this is what the Chinese discovered in biolab number 2, the one further out, that was studying the bat droppings and the way the bats lived, and this is what they discovered. Now, obviously, humans, we have, this is a very crude, obviously, drawing. We have our tracheal mechanism, our the complexity of our thorax and everything, including all of the glands that are intended to help us deal with disease above our lungs. This is why this stuff goes down into your lungs. Also, the shape of our trachea is not as it is with bats. Bats have this sort of peculiar narrowing relative to us. We don't have a narrowing here that would act as a throttling mechanism and keep the viral load up. So the viral load in our trachea, let's look at this in a different way. So we'll look at it as though we're in a cross section. And so we're looking down the tube, right behind the back of the throat, or the area where the tongue adheres into the back of the throat. This is the back, this would be the front of the throat. We usually expel stuff that gets trapped back there. When you cough it up from the back. The force of our lungs directs the air up to the back of the throat, and we expel from out here. And this virus is very nasty. This bioweapon is very nasty because it wants to hang right here. Wants to hang in these two particular spots relative to the ability to cough. And so you're coughing over it here. You're coughing around it. You're not expelling it. The viral load accumulates. This is part of the virus's strategy. It doesn't want to hang out in the back area here in bats or humans. And so there's these elements that are making this bioweapon very, very, very intense in terms of the viral load and its ability to just nail you. Because at some point the viral load will actually start creating scurvy-like conditions throughout any area where that viral mass is congregated. Okay, now note, COVID-19 is huge as these things go, giant, massive amounts of genome in there. So, and it is also very large in relative to other viri. It's extremely large. Relative to rabies, it's extremely large. So there are certain things we can take advantage of here. So obviously, the thing for us, in my way of thinking, is to duplicate the strategy because, okay, so it's a bioweapon. We don't have a cure for it. We can't vacuum it up and get rid of it the way we could maybe radioactive kind of a weapon, or get rid of it the way we could with a chemical weapon by applying some kind of an antidote that made it harmless. We don't have that yet. So what I'm doing is I'm doing as much research as possible to come up with strategies and tactics that we can use now with what we've got in order to overcome and get beyond and adapt so we can find a permanent solution for this, right? Because it's a bioweapon, it's out and about, we've got to deal with it. It's not seasonal flu, these guys are assholes. The leadership is just dumb fucks, as we see as they die, okay? And they'll continue to die. So here's the strategy, people. We need to replicate what the bats do. The bats continually drip vitamin C and other compounds down into their saliva that controls the viral mass. We must do the same. So what nurses and doctors can do is that they can adopt a strategy, especially when they're suited up, right? When they're in gowns and all of that and they can't do anything and they've got other issues, they can adopt a strategy of a lozenge. These lozenges exist now. I'll point you at some brands. I'll get into some of that in a second. These lozenges contain vitamin C. They contain zinc. And as you'll note, zinc is key with all of the fucktard allopathic chemicals they're attempting to try and control this complex bioweapon with, some of which sort of work sometimes. but it's because they don't understand what they're dealing with that sometimes they sort of work. We need something that's beyond that. This will work for all of the nurses and doctors that practice it. It will kill the viral load as it starts to gain traction in their body daily, continuously. They'll be able to overcome the viral load so they can leave without carrying that viral load within them. So the vitamin C and zinc, and if you can get it, sambucus, okay, that's the extract of elderberry. A very powerful, very, very, very powerful antiviral. But these two alone will do it. They'll drop your viral load down to nothing. If you can continually keep one of these lozenges slowly dissolving in the saliva, then you're duplicating what the bat does, but you can do it better because you can, on demand, load your saliva with more vitamin C and more zinc. And then if you put in sambucus also, then you're going to be able to nail it. But you're going to have to keep the lozenge in there every single day, as long as you're faced with that viral load, because this is a bioweapon. It is not a disease, and we need to treat it as a bioweapon. And I've been working on this since sometime in December, analyzing all of this, and I've come to a bunch of conclusions that have proven effective. I've spent the evening and last night speaking with people in a number of different countries that have come through this, that had severe cases of it, to the point where their breathing was threatened and their decision was to die rather than go to the hospital, because in their particular country, going to that hospital would have been certain death and they would have ended up on a ventilator. And they took the approach that we've outlined in the Chaga Gangsters, where they're using vitamin C and to sometimes zinc, but vitamin C primarily, other vitamins like D, and then this medicinal mushroom named chaga. If you go and look it up, you find this is the most studied medicinal mushroom on the planet. And any fucking doctor that says you can't cure things with, or that mushrooms are not drugs, I invite them to come and spend 12 hours with me on some psilocybe cubensis, and then I'll take the next 2 weeks and help them rebuild their personalities, and we can discuss just how ill-formed and uninformed that opinion is. Mushrooms are the most powerful drug on this planet at all levels. So anyway, so there it is. Go get yourself some lozenges. Keep the lozenges in your mouth the entire time. Now you need vitamin C. We're not talking lemon. We're not talking, you can have flavoring in it. It doesn't matter, but it can't have sugar. All right, sugar is going to be death for this, because sugar is going to cause the vitamin C not to be absorbed, and it's going to promote the Prevotella in your throat growth from the process of the virus, COVID-19, the bioweapon, interacting with it. So you can get these lozenges. They're available. There's a brand called Nature's Way that has all three of these and then some other stuff in it. I believe they're probably still widely available. I have a previous relationship with this outfit called Pure Bulk. They do bulk supplements, and we're still making this stuff that we called Pure Sleep to help people sleep. You know, it's good for old farts. It's a thing I came up with. I've contacted them this morning, and we're going to start trying to produce very specific lozenges along these lines that will be massive vitamin C load and long, slow. So we're engineering these things to be very slowly dissolved in the saliva, so you can keep them in your mouth for a long time without adverse effects. Not that Nature's Way would be that way. I'm not saying that, but I don't know how long they last. And you're going to need to, if you're on a 6-hour shift before you can get off and get some rest, you're going to need that lozenge to basically last 6 hours. So if you're going to be in a position where you're going to be there and you determine that a lozenge can last you an hour, then you're going to need to have someone give you those lozenges, or have some method for taking those intermittently through your shift in order to maintain the dampening effect against the viral load. What you're going to want to look for is vitamin C that will deliver 500 milligrams of vitamin C over the course of an hour. That's what, well, I don't have my drawing anymore, but when I was looking at the Chinese literature, that's about the drip rate of vitamin C that they analyzed proportionate to the bat size coming into their saliva. And the guys in the biolab number 2 were analyzing the saliva as it dripped onto bat droppings down below and all of this other gross, disgusting stuff. Anyway, though, so I'm going to make other videos today about why I think this is a bioweapon, but I'm going to shut this one off right now because this is all you need to know, all right? All you need to know is that you can start reducing your viral load with these lozenges, and you can just maintain it. And you may actually end up benefiting from vitamin C. If you can get 1 gram, 2 grams, if you can get something that says 1,600 milligrams, boy, grab something like that, right? And this way, you'll always have the vitamin C also infusing through your system so that you're continually reducing. Bear in mind, the nature of this bioweapon's precursor, the virus in the bat, is that virus continually sampled to see if it could attack the bat based on the amount of vitamin C that it was getting in that saliva. And there we go to all the nurses out there. With respect, these doctors are trained to react react, not think about what's happening. They're supposed to react to what's happening with a protocol, and they feel safe doing that. This is a time they can't do that because this protocol has never happened, or this episode has never happened to humanity before. This is a release of a bioweapon. It is not a disease. If it was a disease, the doctors would not be dying this way. The nurses wouldn't be dying this way. My mother was a nurse for 50 years. I don't want to see you people fall off the planet, right? Especially when it can be stopped. Take the strategy of the bats. We have to adopt things that we can do now to overcome this while we're starting to work on a more permanent solution. And so if you got a doctor that's stupid and says vitamin C won't help, don't tell him you're using the lozenges. Fuck him. You know, if he's so dumb as to try to withstand this viral load of a bioweapon on his own, well, you know, he's basically saying to the universe he's ready to step out. And I don't mean to be cruel, but this is not a time for stupid thinking. Anyway, so sorry to intrude there, but this will work. This strategy will work. It's an adaptation for humans of what the bats do. Please give it a shot and let me know how you're doing.